You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
we
Paine?
will not have raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
Eight together strong. Let that be your mantra.
The Labor Jawn podcast is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Woo! Yeah! Woo!
Here we are for the 50th episode. Gabe, did you think we'd ever get here?
I can't remember starting any of this, so
50 episodes. How do you feel?
tired.
This is going to be a different episode than we usually do.
Yes.
We're not going to pick just a topic and just talk about it. We're going to talk about a lot of things. It's going to be an interview episode, but we're going to be interviewing ourselves. How about that?
I think that's just a conversation.
Is that what normal people call it?
I think so.
Well, we're going to have a conversation with
Okay.
ourselves and with our studio audience.
Woo! Yeah!
Thank you for the person who's weird. Now, Gabe, I want you to tell me, I want to know what your worst work story is or your worst boss story. I want to know.
So, I was thinking about this, and there is one that stands out.
Okay.
So, in college,
Good start.
I had a variety of different jobs. One of them was delivering pizza for Papa John's.
Holy shit.
So I started delivering pizza for Papa John's at the Papa John's on South York Street, or on South Queen Street in York, Pennsylvania. That was just a normal shitty job. But it, though I did have, this isn't a bad boss story. I did have an experience there of delivering pizza to, a house in downtown York. Went in, and there was two old ladies there. They both welcomed, it was cold outside, and they both welcomed me into their living room to wait because it was their son who had ordered the pizza.
This sounds like the beginning of a porno.
So their son had ordered the pizza. He was coming downstairs and was taking his time. So let me come in. And then one of the old women was like, "Oh, you shouldn't come in. I might be an axe murderer." and and I was just like, "Oh, okay, ma'am." And then the other lady was there, was walking away and was like, "Oh, don't mind her. She's just been watching Dexter."
Oh my God.
And then their son came down the stairs, which put him between me and the door, my only exit. And he was 6'2", 6'3", and probably around 300 pounds.
Okay.
So I was getting slightly nervous at this point because
bet.
they had just threatened to murder me, and now the exit was blocked.
Yes.
But he just gave me cash, and then I left. So it was fine.
Oh, okay.
But so that was just that's a normal day delivering pizza
For a pizza man, yeah.
Yeah, that's between that and then
That is,
almost dying every time.
no, that is actually pretty scary.
Yeah. But my worst boss story happened at another Papa John's. This is the Ronhurst Papa John's on Cottman Ave.
Oh,
in
we're
Philly.
calling them out.
Oh, yeah. Well, it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
It's now a Little Caesars. So this one, I started working there, I think the summer of 2012. But this happened over the winter of 2012 to 2013.
Okay.
So the staff there, we had the manager, store manager, a guy named Vince. He was about 35-ish, I think.
Okay.
The assistant manager, don't remember her name. She was just out of college. She was 23-ish. There was another younger girl there who was 19, and she was a CCP student. And then then we had one high school kid who worked there, and then three other guys who worked there that were middle-aged.
This better all be relevant.
It is, especially Vince. Vince's age is relevant here. So because we were all idiots,
Okay.
we would generally, or often, we would hang out after work in either the office or the freezer and drink. Generally, we were drinking White Russians.
Okay.
Which was I mean, they are delicious. But it is also just like a very weird fucking thing to be drinking a White Russian.
It is. At a Papa John's freezer.
Yeah, in a walk-in. Oh, I should also mention the state of this Papa John's. So everything was like slightly broken in the entire store.
Okay.
There's a pillar right out front of the front door. If you kicked the pillar, roaches would scatter in every direction.
That's
Yeah.
that's a good pillar.
We had fly traps or like paper hanging
Yeah.
from the ceiling everywhere.
I like it.
And they were always full.
I'm enjoying this. They were always full.
Yeah. We had a persistent rodent problem as well. So we would like generally be sweeping up mouse droppings.
Okay, you're not being paid by Papa John's right now, right?
No.
I just want to make sure. You're disparaging the good name of Papa John's.
And I'm not sure. I cannot say whether or not the Little Caesars that is currently there is facing the same conditions.
They cleaned up their act.
Yeah, sure. But so that was the state of the Papa John's. We would all like hang out in the freezer after work and drink White Russians. So I started working there the summer of 2012. Went back to school in August or September. Then came back in the winter in like December of 2012. So that was back when Philly actually had cold winters and we had some snow.
Oh.
And while I was out in college, everyone else who was still working there were continuing to like hang out in the freezer after work and drink.
Okay.
And while doing that, Vince apparently developed some feelings for the assistant manager.
Oh.
And when I came back from college, I think I had been back for like 3 days, and he apparently decided to act upon those feelings.
Okay, as you do.
As you do. And he asked the assistant manager out.
Okay, good on you.
She flatly turned him down.
Okay, bad on you.
Yeah. And he took that very, very personally.
Oh.
And took 3 days off of work. We were already short-staffed, and the assistant manager was coming in and filling in as a driver. But now Vince was gone, so the assistant manager had to fill in for Vince. And so she was basically doing open to closes every day for those 3 days that he was off because he asked her out. So he was digging his own grave even deeper here. Because she was supposed to be filling in for a driver and now had to fill in for the manager, I got called up to fill in for the driver. I was already working all 3 of those days. I was working like a 7-hour shift, and now I had to open as well. So because Vince wanted to date someone over 10 years younger than him, I worked 39 hours in 3 days in the snow in a 1996 Honda Civic in Philly, in a section of the city that does not get plowed. And so that was working 39 hours in 3 days was not fun.
Just because you wanted some nookie.
Yes.
Goddamn.
Yeah, and so forcing the rest of your staff to like literally risk life and limb just so people could get a fucking pizza, because pizza is more important than human life.
It is. They need some pizza.
Yeah.
They need their pizza.
And
Gabe, can I ask you a serious question?
Yeah.
Was it 30 minutes or less?
Nope. There was one guy who, it was right after one of the really bad snowstorms. And there was like 18 inches of snow on the ground at this point. And for those younger people living in Philly now,
This was, again, back when Philly had weather that wasn't just like
Hot or cold.
or Canadian fire.
Yes.
Yeah, so the that was probably my worst boss story. But I do also want to give a shout out to the Moroccan community that lives up in Rawhorse.
What?
Because they would always break Ramadan fast with Papa John's. And over Ramadan, I filled in we had two of the middle-aged drivers were Moroccan. So I filled in for one of them once. And he apparently had like every Moroccan housewife would order when he was working. And then I filled in for him, and they were amazed to see not him there. But they thought I was just another young, like, nice brown man. So they kept speaking to me in Arabic.
You are a nice another brown man, Gabe.
Well, thank you. And so I learned just enough Arabic to basically say, like, Ramadan Kareem, which is Happy Ramadan. Woo! And then I don't know anything else. And they would just be like, oh, thank you. And then shuffle me on my way. So yeah, shout out to all of the Moroccan housewives.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, Moroccan housewives. Let's give it up to the Moroccan housewives.
But what is your worst
Gabe,
boss story?
My boss was a sociopath. That's about it. Really.
Okay.
I mean, I worked at Target for about 7.5 years.
Yeah.
Oh God, Gabe. Retail is bad.
Yeah.
There is an endless tale of stories to tell about retail.
Yeah.
Especially during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was essentially an essential worker.
Yeah.
I worked in the food department, and we would have to wear masks, and we would have to go into work every single day. People come in not wearing masks, of course. And they say, hey, why are you wearing a mask? It's like, oh, I don't know, motherfucker. Why do you think we're wearing a mask?
My God.
Because you're in here right now. That's why we're wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Oh, but holy shit, Gabe.
Just shout out to retail workers.
We're raising our Moroccan wives and retail workers. We're raising a glass to. Now, Gabe, this is a very special episode because we just want to know. We're interviewing ourselves. We're talking about ourselves.
Yes.
Because that's all we care about, really. That's all I care about is myself.
We're the most important
Of course.
part. So.
What I want
And our wives.
And our wives, of course. Thank you to the wives and to the families.
Children and sisters.
And children's and sisters and everybody else. What the people really want to know is how did this podcast come to be? Now, you've told this story many times. You're going to have to tell it one more time, Gabe, because I don't believe you. I don't believe the way you tell this story. I don't believe that this actually happened, but I think there's a reason behind that. And I think it was because I was fairly intoxicated. Gabe, how did this podcast come to be?
So, as I vaguely remember it, I believe it was like September of 2021.
Okay.
And we were very drunk.
Okay. That's a good start.
Yes.
And at some point we are while very drunk, I think up in the Wissahickon, or not the Wissahickon, I think we might have been camping up in the Appalachians.
Okay.
I don't remember. But anyway, I said, Sam, we should start a labor history podcast. Or do a labor history podcast. And you said yes. And then we didn't do anything with that.
Yes.
For like a solid month and a half. And then I think I texted you and was like, we should actually, or no, then I think we met up again at some point and we're like, we should actually do that. And then we started figuring out what that would take and then went forward with it. And the rest is labor history.
It is labor history. I do remember you texting me. I remember specifically I was at work in the freezer department at Target.
Yeah.
And I remember you texting me saying, we should do this. We should really actually do this, Sam. This wasn't just a drunk text at midnight.
Yeah.
We should actually do this. And then surprisingly, I agreed to it and it came to be.
Yeah.
Because usually that's not the way it happens with drunk thoughts.
Yeah.
You know?
No, and I think we've kept that kind of attitude
We have
and professionalism.
that drunk attitude.
Yes,
Exactly.
throughout the whole rest of the podcast. So
Now, looking back, Gabe, we've done 50 episodes. That's a lot.
and those are only the official episodes.
Those are the only official episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done Patreon special episodes. We've done all kinds of just things that we've thrown out. We've done episodes over and over again.
Yeah.
Like oh my God. Like the cooperative movement episode that we've done maybe 3 times because our system totally dysfunctioned
Yeah.
and we had to record it 3 times. I was going to ask you what your least favorite episode is. I think that might be my least favorite episode just because we've done it 3 times in a row.
That's fair.
But I want to know what your favorite episode is. Do you have a favorite episode that we've ever done?
Sure. Well, I don't know. I'm stuck between either the shirtwaist strike or the electrical workers.
Okay.
The shirtwaist strike is just a fun one.
Yeah. Well, that was our 3rd episode.
Yeah. And it was, looking back at it, it was rough.
It was rough. The first 10 episodes, I think, were rough for us. Because you were still trying to find your footing with the researching, and then it was just me trying to come up, me just trying to do Rodney Dangerfield impressions for the first 10 episodes.
There's a place.
There's a place.
I'll go with the electrical worker. Or no, garbage strike.
Garbage strike, okay.
It's only because the visual of a police chase or the strikers chasing after the scabbing garbage workers and releasing garbage all around West Philly just makes me laugh. So yeah, I think the garbage strike is my favorite.
I'm going to counter that with the rise of industrial capitalism in Philadelphia.
That was a good one.
Because John Nicholson was such a freaking character.
Yes, he was.
And
in fairness to both of our shitty bosses, they never tried to pay us in books.
That is very true. They never tried to pay poor German families in books instead of money.
Yeah.
That episode has a lot of good shit in it, though.
It does.
That has a lot of good moments in it.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to be a little self-serving here because I will say that I do like the Samisodes.
That's true.
I do like him because I'm not a researcher. We've said this many times. I'm not a researcher. I'm just a guy with a banjo who does not have any kind of degree at all, who did not graduate any kind of college at all. I'm just a man, and this man just loves to learn.
Woo!
And
To learning!
thank you, audience. and I don't know. It has to be between. There's only been 3 Samisodes, but I think it has to be between the first one, which is has a soft spot in my heart, the baseball's first player strike.
Yeah.
And also the episode about Kiyoshi Kuramiya.
Yeah.
The Forrest Gump of activism.
Yeah.
So I mean those
That's
two
true.
definite favorites for myself.
Oh, Kiyoshi was a good one.
It was. I mean, goddamn, that guy was everywhere.
Yeah. And the fucking balls to hand a copy of The Gay Dealer to Rizzo.
I know, right?
That was good. Oh. Yeah, we need to... If anyone listening to this knows where a copy of The Gay Dealer still exists, let us know.
Or if you have a picture of him giving the copy of The Gay Dealer. Philadelphia is only gay, one of only the gay newspapers that they had at the time. Giving it to Frank Rizzo at the Mummers Day Parade in 1971. It is just chef's kiss.
Yep.
Now, Gabe, I want to know what your favorite moment in in total labor history is.
I think at least from stuff that we've covered.
Yeah, at least that.
Probably the United Electrical Workers trolling the cops by playing the national anthem. if only because we have a photo of it.
Yes.
And all of the cops are so fucking confused. And everyone's just standing there saluting and just like, what's going on right now?
That's another thing with the Kiyoshi thing was like when they went to that like truck stop in Maryland.
Yeah.
They just kept playing God Bless America on the jukebox, the troll, the backwoods, the Maryland backwoods people, you know what I mean? Same thing. It's like you got to out-patriotism them.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. You got to play them at their own game. But yeah, that was freaking hilarious.
Yeah. That is a solid tactic. But what is yours?
Now, my favorite is from episode 12, the Reading Railroad Massacre.
Oh,
When the Conshohocken militia came up and said, no, we won't shoot just innocent civilians and laborers. We're actually going to be on the side of them, and we're going to have a few drinks with them, and we're actually going to protect them.
Your boys from Conchi.
That's it is. It's the boys from Conchi.
Yeah. Shout out to Conchi.
Shout out to Conchi and the boys and the militia boys are there.
Militia boys too.
We need like that's what we need. We need to like erect a statue to the Conshohocken militia boys.
That I really want to I want to reenact that moment and go up to Reading and get a bunch of people to be the strikers and then get a bunch of other folks to be the Conshohocken militia.
Yeah.
And then just day drink. But historically.
Well, I mean, that's what literally happened.
That is what happened.
They were just like, no, we're not going to shoot people. We're going to drink with them.
Yeah. And also hand over our arms and ammunition to the strikers. But as you do.
This is the kind of stuff that I love about this podcast, Gabe. Is that the stuff you never, ever will learn about in school.
Yeah.
Like, we were going to... I don't know if we're going to have a talk about this, but like... actually, here's the thing. We talked... We sent out some words to our fans on like Instagram and all that. And we asked if anybody has any questions or any shout outs. And we got some pretty good feedback. And we got something from one of our followers on Instagram, Edible Alphabet, who asks, do labor movements get taught in school? And what can we do to support that work? And that goes with everything we just talked about, because I think the answer is no. Not really.
Yeah.
Like, you've never heard, at least I haven't, any of this stuff. Yeah. Even big stuff, like with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was very much involved in the labor movement, but you never hear that. You hear all this stuff about Martin Luther King and he was assassinated, but what was he doing at the time?
It's fighting for AFSCME unionized garbage workers.
Exactly.
Or sanitation workers.
Exactly, but you never hear that part of it. So, no, that's my answer, but like, do labor movements get taught in school, Gabe?
I think it depends on the school and the location. There are some, because I know, like, just anecdotally from people commenting on Instagram, some people have talked about this stuff getting taught, but definitely, I don't think anyone in Philly has ever said that. And, like, I've not seen any of this being taught in Philly schools.
Yeah.
And it's, but it's stuff like where the Philadelphia Housing Authority came from. That was radical protests from the labor movement and the communists.
Yeah.
And then
you don't hear that?
Yeah. And then Grace Kelly's dad being like, I'm going to make this a campaign promise.
Yeah.
And then the mayor said, okay. And like we don't get taught how much impact specifically like a very radical labor movement had on our lives. And you can get conspiratorial about why, but I mean
we all know why.
Yeah.
But
Miranda McNally owns all of our textbooks. So
on that note, what do you think, talking about our podcast, in the grand scheme of things, like, what are we trying to do? What's our place in the labor movement?
So I've got thoughts.
Okay, I want to hear your thoughts.
I haven't had time to do any like serious research into this, but I am more and more coming to the opinion that
one of the things that made the labor movement of the first half of the 20th century as powerful as it was were the, like, ancillary organizations around it.
Okay.
So the best example I can think of are the labor lyceums, which were basically like big meeting halls where they would hold speeches and rallies and stuff like that. But they were also just like a community center.
Yeah.
And you had everyone from like Samuel Gompers to Emma Goldman, who the two of them absolutely hated each other, but both of them were speakers in the Philly Labor Lyceums.
Yeah, there was a common goal.
Yeah. And those also served as meeting halls for unions. They served as organizing locations, and they served as places to like radicalize people. And we have, and that the two labor lyceums were, that Philly had were also supported by like, there were a bunch of other like random halls and other things like that, like in like the Odd Fellows Club.
Yeah.
And so all of these things that existed specifically for working class culture and organizing, and provided a third place for workers to be. But all of those have basically disappeared at this point. And we don't have these like big publicly, or not publicly funded, because they were all privately funded. But these big event halls where workers can gather to like listen to an anarchist speak about the labor movement and stuff like that. So, and not having that, or rather, so that's one aspect of it. Then that also ties in to like the cultural side of things, where you had organizations like the Workers' Circle, which was specifically for like Jewish workers. But they would host musicals. They would have these big parties. They would do shows. They would do like banquets and like
pick up softball games in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And actually that's a really good example. So the, I think it was the Silk Workers in like 1926. I can never remember what strike that was involved in, but I know it happened. At some point, I think it was Silk Workers. And it was during Prohibition. Were on strike, and their picket line was basically just like an open air dance hall / baseball field and speakeasy.
Yeah.
Like it was a block party, effectively.
Exactly.
But in order for that to happen, it wasn't just United Textile Workers or the Association of Full Fashioned Hosiery Workers that were doing it. It was also all of these other ancillary organizations that were coming in to help and to support them.
Okay.
And that built this big labor culture within the community. And it's also one thing where, like, when you have these third places where everyone from the labor movement can meet, that isn't just your local union hall, then you have textile workers sitting next to dock workers, sitting next to steel workers, sitting next to fur workers and stuff like that, or teamsters. And they all get to know each other. And that way, when Joe the Teamster goes on strike, Jimmy the dock worker is like, oh, well, I'm going to go fucking support Joe.
Yeah.
And so even just like sitting down and having a beer with someone, that can be a level of organizing that you can then build on later on. And so, getting back to the actual question.
Hour and a half ago, when I asked you this question.
I think our position and the position of other organizations or other like groups and things like us, because like the Paul Robeson House has started to do stuff like this, just hosting events, is we can serve as that kind of third place that isn't work, isn't the union hall, but is a third place that is pro-labor and allows people to meet up with each other and build that community.
It's which like we're there for people. You want to come and talk to us, you know.
And also just the importance of labor education, that like the getting more people to recognize what you can do through collective action. Because most people don't think about it on their day-to-day lives, but it's like, it's something that can make real change relatively quickly.
Yeah.
It just takes a fuck ton of work.
It does.
And that's also why I like, that I think we've gotten a good approach of being pro-labor, but not sugarcoating everything.
I mean, we've talked about like the 44?
Yeah. The PTC strike.
PTC strike, where they went on strike because 8 black workers were going to be promoted.
Yeah.
So all these white union workers went on strike. Yes, that is not a good union thing to do.
No.
We called them out on that bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, we're not completely blind to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course.
And we highlighted that there was another union that was supporting the black workers, because it was a 3-way union battle that was really confusing.
That was, oh my, I don't want to go back into that.
No, that was a bad one. Yeah, and also just highlighting that, like, all of this just takes so much fucking work.
It does. It takes work and it takes time. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's good progress takes a lot of work.
Yes.
Bad progress doesn't seem like it takes a lot of work. It seems like you can easily slide back.
Yes.
It's easy to slide back into badness.
Yes.
But to actually work into goodness and to actually improve shit, it takes work and it takes time, and it.
Yeah.
So much work inside. It does though.
I have them in the palm of my hands.
Yeah. They're well organized.
Now, we kind of answered this, or at least you answered my question here for myself. But our favorite moment in the labor movement since the start of this podcast. I'm going to go first because you already answered mine. I think the Philadelphia Museum of Art strike was a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
The memes that I got from this was incredible. They were incredible. Let alone, but I mean, like we've done an interview with a few of the strikers from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and that went very well.
Yeah.
And the strike ended in success.
Yeah.
So
It's a pretty damn good contract.
yeah.
So,
But for you, like since the start of this podcast in the last 2 years, do you have a like favorite labor movement or moment?
Tuxa strike.
Okay.
In part just because I'm a sucker for an entertaining picket line. And they definitely had one.
Well, if we're going to talk entertaining picket lines, you cannot leave out the NoHo stripper strike.
Oh, well, yeah. You're right.
I know it's not local. It's on the
Yeah.
other side of the country, but the North Hollywood stripper strike at Star Garden was most definitely an entertaining
Yes.
picket line.
That was fantastic. Doing a themed picket line every night was just incredible to watch. Like, I think my favorite one was Dad's Grilling. That was fucking fantastic. I think that was definitely my favorite.
Yeah, they had some brilliant ones there. So, Gabe, we've been doing this for about 2 years, 2.5 years, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. We're about 50 episodes in.
Yeah.
This is our 50th episode. Now, me and you, we've known each other for close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
We're friends. I would call us friends.
A little bit,
Associates.
Yeah.
Work coworkers.
We're colleagues.
We're colleagues. Workplace proximity associates.
Yes.
I want to know, what is the future of this podcast? What do we got going on in the next 2 years or the next 20 years? What's going to happen?
I would like to know that too.
Can I tell you?
Sure.
I don't know, Gabe, but
Damn
I'm like
it.
really excited for it
Yeah.
because I don't want to burn you out. I don't want to peel this curtain back so much. Gabe does so much fucking research for this podcast.
Yes, Gabe.
Sam does so much fucking editing
Hold on,
for
Gabe,
this.
Gabe.
Gabe.
Breathe it in, bud. Breathe it in, bud.
I
Okay?
don't like it.
You breathe it in. This man does so much research. He reads so many books for this, okay? I've only done 3 Sam-episodes, and that was a bullshit amount of work. I don't want to go back to doing Sam-episodes, even though how much fun it was. This man does so much, okay? And I enjoy working with this guy, and I don't want to burn you out. And I think there's so much for us to tap into. I think there's so much that we haven't touched. I think there's so much that we can still venture into. This adventure isn't over, Gabe.
Oh, definitely not.
It is not.
One of the main reasons why I wanted to do this is I knew I wanted to learn labor history.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do it on my own. So this has just forced me to learn all of this shit. And I've been enjoying it.
And on a personal note, I was in a funk for years. 2020 fucked me up brutally. When I was working retail 2020. But like when you came to me with this idea for the podcast, and it kind of reinvigorated my love for performing music and writing again and stuff. And it really turned shit around for me, to tell you the truth. To not be too personal. Yeah. But yes, Gabe, and I'm enjoying it, and I can't wait to do another 50 episodes with you, my good friend Gabe Christie.
I can't wait either.